A warm welcome to you all, everyone. Thank you very much for joining again. And I hope that we will be entertained or perhaps engaged in another interesting and stimulating conversation. Now, we are living in some very dark times, times in which I think we've got to pay attention to, and we've got to do a lot of research, we've got to do a lot of reflection. And in some cases, we have to rethink our very positions, the positions that we hold, and some of the knowledge that we think were accurate knowledge, and begin to readjust some of our thinking. Now, we are back on the topic of Haiti. And what is happening in Haiti today is a nightmare. And we must understand that we're not just talking about numbers of death and the fact that many people are starving because the gangs have blocked ports and airports. And in many cases, people cannot get access to food and water and other important supplies. So our prayers have to be with the Haitian people and for the Haitian people. I'm asking to pray for the Haitian people. That is very, very important because I cannot imagine that the region or one of the countries in the Caribbean region is going through such a crisis. This is a real crisis. And I am not sure how this is going to play out. I think that at the end of the day, all forces seem to be against Haiti at this moment. Haiti, a bona fide member of CARICOM, has been betrayed by the CARICOM leaders. For whatever reason, we cannot judge, but we can look at what is happening, the events that are unfolding before our eyes, and we can see that the people of Haiti have been betrayed by CARICOM. The Caribbean community seems to have been baptized into the imperialistic agenda of the United States of America and the core group, its international and multilateral or multinational partners. And, you know, power corrupts, and absolute power corrupts absolutely. And I think that our politicians in the Caribbean have they have become accustomed rather to power, and they seem to like it. And the whole matter of being on the internet and always being on display makes them feel as if they are very important. And that is sometimes very dangerous. I look at Andrew Holness, who was brought up in the Seventh-day Adventist Church, and who maybe he doesn't have an in-depth understanding of the Seventh-day Adventist teachings, but I'm sure that he understands to some extent the prophecies of Daniel and the Revelation. And no church in Christendom can expound upon the prophecies of Daniel and the Revelation like the Seventh-day Adventist Church. None. I challenge you, none. The sort of knowledge that has been left us by the pioneers of the Seventh-day Adventist movement is second to none. And I'm sure that Andrew Holness understands, even if he has just a minute understanding of the role of the United States in the final moments of history, he should understand that to some extent. He has a governor general who in Jamaica, that's the governor general in Jamaica. For those of you who do not know, Jamaica is a constitutional, what should I say now, monarchy. It is a constitutional monarchy in which the the King of England, that's King Charles III, is the head of state. So what you have there is a governor general that represents his leadership down there. It stands as symbolic gesture that he is, in fact, the head of state of Jamaica. So Jamaica is a constitutional monarchy, which is something very interesting. And that governor general also is a pastor, or, I'm not sure if he's still functioning in that capacity. He's now governor general, so I'm not sure how much preaching he does, but he was a preacher, a renowned preacher in the Seventh Adventist Church in Jamaica. And I am wondering, what are his thoughts on what is happening in Haiti and the decisions by the CARICOM leaders to assist the United States in with this transitional government. As we have been told, and if you're reading, you'll understand that Haiti has been going through a crisis, at least since 2004, when the United States deposed its democratically elected government. So the United States actually deposed the president, that was Jean-Bertrand Aristide, and afterwards seized the government. He actually exiled, the United States exiled him, kidnapped him, and sent him to Central Africa. During that time, while that crisis was unfolding in 2004, I think it was February 29th, was it 2004? The Jamaican government, under the leadership of P.J. Patterson, he decided that he had to do something along with the CARICOM leaders. CARICOM was a totally different bloc and had, under the leadership of P.J. Patterson, and they were able to negotiate and to see if the president could have at least aired his views in Jamaica and given his point of view, his perspective on what took place. But it was evident that Washington did not want President Jean-Bertrand Aristide to be in the region because they thought that he would be a threat. At least he would have been able to have interviews done, and perhaps people would know what really took place. And that would pose a threat to US foreign policy and US dominance in the region. So the best thing was for them to have him pack his bag and go to a Central African country. Now, one of the things that is very interesting and that we need to pay attention to, how is it that in the 21st century, 2004, you have a sovereign state, or what should be a sovereign state, because obviously it's not, that was overruled and was invaded by another foreign power? Its government was taken out of office without the permission of the populace. And we know that democracy is for a government for and by and of the people, right? But the United States military went down there and they took the president. I'm not a fan, and perhaps wasn't a fan of Jean-Bertrand Aristide, but he was the sitting government. And even if that government was an evil government, the people are the ones who should decide. And perhaps the United States at that moment, if they thought that he was not doing a decent job, should have tried to convene an election, right? And then the people would have decided if they wanted him still or if they wanted to have voted him out. Instead, the United States foisted leaders, government upon government, prime ministers and presidents upon the people without their consent. And this is where we are now in terms of the disaster that Haiti currently finds itself in. This is unthinkable. Now, when we look at what is happening too, in 2010, in Jamaica, under the leadership of Bruce Golding, Prime Minister Bruce Golding, former Prime Minister of Jamaica, he was also he found himself in a situation in which the United States accused him of, being connected to criminal elements through this drug kingpin called Christopher Koch. And this character, Koch, was requested for extradition. But what was happening is that the government under PJ Patterson, Bruce Golding, suggested to the United States that, the way in which they had done their investigation, they had done it in contravention of Jamaican laws. They had broken Jamaican laws in terms of wiretapping, right? And bugging someone's phone. That is not permitted in Jamaica because they wanted evidence to, to verify, to confirm that this Dodoscope was indeed a drug kingpin. So the best way that the United States could have compiled that evidence was through bugging and wiretapping of Dodoses and people with whom he communicated phone lines. Now, it was a lengthy process, and eventually Bruce Golding tried to retain a law firm in the United States privately, not a public, but a private law firm. And the United States, found out, and and they decided that they wanted Bruce Golding out. They decided, not the Jamaican people now. Bruce, the United States, government decided that Bruce Golding had to demit office. And I remember the day when Hillary Clinton went down there to Kingston, and it still is not sure what people are not sure what she said to former Prime Minister Bruce Golding, but in that week, he resigned. He left office. And I think that was about around the same time in 2010 also, when they had another elections in Haiti. And I think Proval, based on my reading, won the election because he was put in office after John Burton Aristide demitted office after he was taken out of office. I think Proval came into office around about 2006 or 2005, thereabout, if somebody can remind me. But 2010, he seemed to have gotten another mandate. But Hillary Clinton wanted Michelle Martelly in that position. And it seemed to me that the results of the election were actually botched, so that, the elections would have appeared as if Proval, the then president, lost the election to Martelly. And as I'm hearing from different reports by WikiLeaks, that, in an email that was sent to Proval by Hillary Clinton, the then Secretary of State under Barack Obama, she suggested that if he did not leave office, then she would send an airplane for him also to leave the country. So what we're seeing in the Caribbean, I think the agenda is set. And even during the time when Jean Bertrand Aristide was removed from office in 2004, and the fact that a democratic country like Jamaica invited him over, which democratic countries can do. And I think also at that time, Haiti was also a bona fide member of CARICOM. Yeah, in 2004, Haiti was, at that time, I believe, a member of CARICOM. So it was in Mr. Patterson's right to invite another CARICOM member to sit and have a dialogue so that his grievances could be aired, and perhaps the Jamaican journalists and perhaps American journalists also would be able to interview him. That didn't happen because the United States threatened Jamaica and its government. And PJ Patterson had to, I think he was there for a brief moment, and then he had to leave the island of Jamaica. So I think these two important events have indicated to CARICOM and the countries in the region that the United States runs the show. And I think that the leaders of CARICOM and the leaders of our Caribbean region do not want to contest US policy because they know if they do, that consequences follow and serious consequences follow. And the United States is very good at using the media to propagate its propaganda against any person or any leader who contests its power, who challenges its imperialistic agenda. So this is what we're seeing happening in CARICOM. And a lot of us sometimes, we're not behind the scenes. We're not seeing what is behind the scenes. We're just watching, and we're thinking that they should act based on principle. And I agree with you 100% that our leaders should act based on principle. But when you look at us too, a lot of times we don't act based on principles. We act because we want to preserve our jobs, because these are men and women like yourself, right? Who have children, who have responsibilities, and they might not want to rock the boat because they can lose their lives, they can lose their livelihoods, right? They can even lose their titles, you know, and their good name might be impugned. So these are real issues that these leaders are faced with. I think some of them perhaps lack the requisite, what should I say now, discipline and moral ethics. But I think some might have, but are afraid, and they are not willing to challenge the powers that be. Now, it's interesting to see, let me show you a picture here of Dr. Gonzalez, who is the Prime Minister of St. Vincent and the Grenadines. Where is he? If I can put him up here. No, it's not this here. I'm sorry. Let me pull up. Yeah, so this is a meeting of CARICOM yesterday. This is the president of CARICOM, and this is the Prime Minister of no, the sitting president of CARICOM is Guyana. He's Guyanese rather. He's Dr. Mohammed Irfan Ali, and he is the Prime Minister of the Republic of Guyana. And we have here the government of, or the Prime Minister of Barbados, and this is she, and her name is Mia Mottley. And then we have the Jamaican Prime Minister Andrew Holness. And these three seem to be the most powerful leaders of CARICOM. Gone are the days when Jamaica held a very respectable position in CARICOM and in the world, because its foreign policy was clearly defined and it represented something. It stood for something, particularly in the period of the 1970s under Michael Manley. Now we're seeing that CARICOM is losing or has lost its respectability. Now, here the Gleaner opened up its newspaper this morning. The leading story in the Gleaner this morning was Haiti PM out. Transitional Presidential Council set up during talks in Jamaica to guide nation in crisis to election of new leader. Now, I did say to you that when I saw that Ariel Henry wasn't able to land in the DR, and that his plane had to detour to make a detour to Puerto Rico, I realized that the game was over for him, that something was not right. And I think it was confirmed to me yesterday when they had the press conference, not the CARICOM meeting in Kingston, the emergency CARICOM meeting in Kingston, and Ariel Henry had not shown up in Kingston for the meeting. I knew that his tenure was, coming to an end if it had not yet ended. And then I saw on the ground in Haiti where Guy Philippe, I was calling him Guy, but the correct pronunciation is Guy. Guy Philippe was on the ground, and he was also vying for the presidency. And if there's no opposition, by the United States, then you know that the United States is supporting that candidate. And any candidate that the United States supports, the Haitian people, the Haitian masses are going to be against, because they understand that the US runs the show and the US is not running the country in the interest of the common man, but is running the country in the interest of the US and also the Haitian elites. Now, listen to what the leader is saying here this morning. Embattled Haitian Prime Minister Ariel Henry has resigned as leader of the violence-torn nation. Right, the violence-torn nation, right? The announcement was made by CARICOM Chairman Mohamed Irfan Ali during a press conference held at the end of a lengthy day of high-level talks at the Jamaica Pegasus Hotel in the island's capital yesterday. So we do know that the president, the acting prime minister rather, of Haiti has resigned. Right, so we have Ali, the president of Guyana, told journalists and others gathered rather for the press conference that a transitional presidential council had been established, which will be responsible for naming an interim prime minister ahead of a national election to determine a new head of government. So now we're still not clear when they will have elections, because based on what we read or what I understood or understand is that the elections would have been held next year. Was it next year, 2025? That's Ariel Henry was planning to hold elections next year. But now that he is out of office, we're not sure if that election will be again postponed. But another significant occurrence, things are happening, and because I am religious, I believe in the Bible. I think that God is holding back the winds of strife. So here we see that the Kenya's government puts deployment of police to Haiti on hold after chaos grips the Caribbean nation. So that is good that these Kenyan soldiers have been put on hold, because I understand that the Kenyan forces are very dangerous, and they are paramilitary forces. They are death squads. They are internationally known to be very, very brutal in their job undertaking. So Kenya is halting plans to deploy at least 1,000 police officers. Sometimes we hear it's 1,000, sometimes it's 4,000. We don't really know how many will be sent to Haiti following the unprecedented violence that erupted in the Caribbean nation and the announcement by its Prime Minister Ariel Henry that he would resign once the presidential council is created, a Kenyan official said. Kenya had agreed last October to lead a United Nations authorized international police force to Haiti, but the country's top court in January ruled this was unconstitutional, in part because of a lack of reciprocal agreements on such deployments between the two countries. So the dispatch of these soldiers is unconstitutional. Kenya's President William Ruto said that he and Henry had witnessed the signing of the reciprocal agreements between Kenya and Haiti on March 1, clearing the path for the development. My understanding is that a price was paid in terms of, they were bribed. The Kenyans were bribed. The US, it's alleged, paid over $600 million, I understand, to the forces in Kenya, to the government. That is what it has been alleged. I can't verify that, so don't say that that's a fact and it is true. I don't know if it is true, and I can't verify whether or not it's a fact. It has been alleged. So let's leave it like that. I don't want to say things that I know are not true and also might not be based in facts. Okay? Very important that you understand that. Now, one of the things I am very concerned about, and perhaps the lecturers and the professors at the University of the West Indies might be upset with me, but I have to say this. What is the purpose of the University of the West Indies if nothing is coming from them? Why this deafening silence? What is happening at the political science department, the history department, the sociology department? Why aren't we hearing voices coming out and having a nuanced conversation? And I'm not suggesting now that they have to agree with my ideology or my understanding or my take on the matter, but at least Jamaica needs to have, and the Caribbean, you know, by extension, a very in-depth and nuanced conversation on what is happening. We should be having a debate about what is happening so that the people of the Caribbean region can be properly informed. Because I think that there is a lack of information. And when I see people commenting and having their podcasts, you know, and I'm happy that we have lots of podcasters in the Caribbean region, in Jamaica, in Trinidad, and other parts of the region. But when I listen to some of these podcasts, I realize that there is a lack of historical understanding as to the purpose of Haiti. Sorry about that. This is something that I had to read because all right, I'm sorry about that. Hope you are hearing me, you're listening to me because, yeah, sometimes I'm not as organized as I ought to be, right? And there's a lot of things on my mind. Okay, now this book, as I think I read this book to you or part of it to you once on our channel, book written by Rondell Robinson, and Haiti from Revolution to the Kidnapping of a President, and it an unbroken agony, and it was written by the late Rondell Robinson, who is no longer with us. Um, Now, he's talking about in his book here about the abduction, the kidnapping of the president of Haiti. That was John Bertrand Aristide. Now, listen to what Rondell Robbins is saying on page 266 of his book. He says, lastly, the evidence decisively showed that the United States, with the assistance of France, methodically undermined the political and economic stability of Haiti before abducting its democratically elected president and overthrowing its democratically elected government. So the democratically elected president and overthrowing its democratically elected government. So they actually kidnapped him. Can you imagine? Somebody coming to Congress, right? And or the White House, I should say, and kidnapping the American president. You know, how would Americans feel about that? Now, owing to an extreme imbalance of power and influence between the small middle-income democratic countries of the Caribbean region and the large industrialized countries of North America and Western Europe, calls from Caribbean leaders for an official investigation of the events of the early morning hours of February 29, 2004 were ignored. Now, it's interesting that they did this on a leap year, right? February 29, 2004, because we have, leap year every 4 years. Is it every 4 years? So you can't celebrate the event every year. I think that this was done deliberately, right? To have this deed committed on, or this act on February 29, 2004, because February 29 is a leap year. Now, listen to what Rondell Robinson continues to declare. The people of the Democratic Caribbean were forced, due to their ironic proximity to democratic America, to accept certain unpleasant realities. As between the big and small, so the big being the United States and small being Haiti, that is the rich and poor nations of the world, there exist no checks and balances, right? So when you're talking about the United States versus smaller countries, there are no checks and balances, as Rondell is here asserting. No fair panel of last resort, no higher court before which to petition for recourse, no hierarchy of enforceable rights, no scheme of natural equity or fairness. As long as one member nation of the global family of nations is free to behave toward a fellow member nation with legal impunity to bully, to menace, to invade, to destabilize politically or economically, to reduce the tumult, no country so threatened can hope to enjoy the social and political contentment that ought inherently to attend democratic practices. Right? So Haiti cannot be free and Haiti cannot remain in peace as long as you have the United States among other bigger nations continuing to dominate that nation state and force them to do its bidding, then you will not have peace. As Bob Marley says, there is going to be war. There is going to be continuous war, right? And I think the United States needs to visit that Bob Marley song because all they were glorifying is the one love, one heart, let's get together and feel all right. That's all they were, that they are highlighting that Bob Marley song, but they're not talking about the fact that Bob Marley was also singing about the injustices in the world. And he said, until those injustices are actually, taken care of, dealt with, then, and I should use the word eradicated, then you won't have peace. All you'll have, as Bob says, is war. Now, listen to what Robinson continues to say. Since Haitian slaves won their independence from France in 1804, and please listen to me as I talk about this, because sometimes we have not yet understood what is going on. And we need to understand clearly the issues. Because this is not about Democrat and Republican. The fact of the matter is that both Republican and Democrats have the same foreign policy agenda for all countries. So when I see countries, oh, Barack Obama or Trump or Biden, and they think that they are going to be different for them, it makes no difference. There is no difference when it comes on to the US foreign policies. Even people who live in the United States understand that there's no difference between both parties, that it is a uniparty, even demonstrated in domestic policies. So think twice before you cast your vote. Because sometimes when you cast your vote, you will be held accountable for all the deaths and the blood that is spilled around the world. Because the empire continues to shed innocent blood. And you think that you are going to be exempt from that. But our day is coming. And that is why we have to speak out. I'm a little disturbed also and disappointed that I have not heard anything from Professor Orlando Patterson, the Jamaican intellectual at Harvard University. I would have thought, having a very in-depth understanding and knowledge of history, that he would have at least said something about what is happening in Haiti. Right? He needs to speak out. Since Haitian slaves won their independence from France in 1804, the United States has loomed over Haiti like the sword of, yeah. The record of this abuse of power is well known to the steadfast democratic English-speaking Caribbean nations that have little choice but to heed the chilling implications of this for their own survival. Their leaders have learned the hard way that within their well-managed tropical island states, no election verdict no constitutional custom or habit, no parliament's decision, no ordinary citizen's commonplace democratic prerogative is saved from an intrusive, hegemonic America whose caprices and policies are neither fairer nor more predictable nor more morally conscionable than the vagaries of hurricanes, right? So Haiti is in the throes of American imperialism. And that is what it's all about. This is nothing new. There's nothing new under the sun. And it is embarrassing that CARICOM has betrayed one of its member states, one of its sister countries. And I apologize that Jamaica also is involved in that process. Because as much as Jamaica has its problems, when it comes on to leadership, we were high up there. I remember I was having a dialogue in the States with, some of our Caribbean, friends, people from Barbados, Antigua, Trinidad, and, some other Caribbean nations. And, this guy from Barbados said, one of the things about Jamaica when they're having meetings in CARICOM, when, let us say all the members of the different heads of states are there, the meeting is not going to begin until Jamaica walks in, until a representative of Jamaica walks in. Because, having the meeting without a representative from Jamaica is almost like having no meeting, right? And we remember when the West Indian Federation fell because of the jealousies between Trinidad and Jamaica, that, Eric Williams, right, the guy who wrote Capitalism, Slavery and Capitalism, Capitalism and Slavery, yeah, Capitalism and Slavery, yeah, that's Eric Williams, that he said that, 1 from 10 leaves naught, because Jamaica decided that it wasn't going to go for the federation route. So Eric Williams said, let's just annul this process, because without Jamaica, we're not going to be able to move forward, right? Because Jamaica had a presence back then. We can't say Jamaica has a presence now, because we've lost that respectability among the nations, and we have lost the presence that we use, the aura that we used to have. We've lost that. And I don't think that is ever going to come back, based on what I see, the current crop of politicians I'm seeing in Jamaica. And when I look at them, I realize that they have no understanding of what, good leadership, effective leadership is all about. We have lost the spirit of the Mandays. And even as bad as Edward Seger was, he had his moments where he stood up, right? He stood up whenever he thought that he believed in something. He would stand up for it, no matter what the cost. But I think that our current crop of politicians worldwide, in the Caribbean as well, prefer power, and they hold tenaciously to this power dynamics, that they don't care, what the consequences, right, that might ensue. So this is what is happening. Now, there was a press conference in Kingston yesterday. But before I go to the press conference, let me have you, I'm going to share briefly a video with you entitled Haiti Crisis Update. And this was done by the Haitian Studies Department. Let's look at this. I'm just going to show you a brief, of a briefing of what they were saying. And, it's very sad what is happening in Haiti, to say the least. It's very, very sad. It's painful. And we must understand that we're talking about human lives here. And even if one life is lost, it's too many. And I think that we're taking this for granted. And the young people in the Caribbean, they're so caught up with their cell phones and the superficial lifestyle, right, that we have of the 21st century, because our lifestyle is artificial and superficial. right? The lifestyle that we're living in the 21st century, it's both artificial and superficial. Nothing to it. It has no meaning. And that is why many of us are depressed, because our lives have no meaning. Because lives should be lived based on service to humanity. It should not be about the accumulation of power and money, right? But that is what our life in the 21st century is all about. Now, let us listen to this lady, professor. I think she is a professor at the University of Maryland, College Park. Listen briefly to what she has to say here.
Diaspora and have continued our work to ensure our own support and contributions to solving the current crisis. As Haitian studies scholars, activists, artists, practitioners, and translators, we lament the loss of human lives and the suffering that our sisters and brothers in Haiti are experiencing. They are our colleagues, friends, sisters, brothers, cousins, aunts, uncles, fathers, mothers, grandmothers, grandfathers. Haiti is a part of us, whether by birth or by choice. We deeply feel the pain that everyone in Haiti is going through right now and has been for far too long. As a colleague recently said, and I quote, wars, chaos, disruption, destruction, and loss of human lives diminish all of us. The recent federations of gangs coordination make the narrative around Haiti even more complex and layered. It is not a binary of good, evil, lawless, unlawlessness, and just, unjust. It is all of that and more. Today, as the world celebrates International Women's Day, we especially think of our sisters in Haiti who are getting raped and killed every minute. Let us take 60 seconds to remember our Haitian sisters and brothers, both those who have been killed as a result of the various insecurities, mental, physical, psychological, and emotional, and those who continue to be victims. Let's pause for 60 seconds.
So that is therapy. That is very painful, right? And if you have a human heart, you cannot but shed some tears. Right? Cannot but shed some tears. We are losing our humanity, and we're acting like wild animals because of money and power, fame, right? Now look at Ariel Henry, who thought that he was a very important man. Just a few days ago, he was doing the bidding of the United States and the courtroom. And the same people who seem to have been elevating him, right, and bestowing glory upon and honor on his name, they are the same ones who seem to be humiliating him at this moment. And how quickly the narrative can change. Because here's a guy, it seems like he was heading for the Dominican Republic, and at the last minute, the plans changed for him to have landed in this country. at the last minute. Right? This is to show you that it's best to stand up for principles, though the heavens fall. Right? Stand up for principles. Because had Ariel Henry stood up for standards and for principles, he would not have been humiliated on the world stage as he is now, because he's got to resign. He was bent on the fact that he was not resigning, but he was eventually forced to resign. Because at the end of the day, it is God who sets up and he puts down. And Ariel Henry and the United States Empire they're not running the show. Yeah, in our eyes, because we're not seeing what is happening in the spiritual realm, it seems like they're running the show, but they're not running the show really. It is God who is steering this wheel. And at the right time, he's also going to cut the United States off this world power. But she's playing her role. And if you understand prophecy well, it is not surprising what the United States is doing. The Bible says that she's going to cause the entire world to wander after the beast. This United States that came up like a lamb-like beast is going to cause the entire world to wander after the beast. And we are already seeing that all the nations of the world fear her. I should say most, 99%, 99.5% of the countries in the world fear the power of the United States of America. And that is a prophetic mission that she's going to play. And we've got to understand that. And some painful things and more painful events are going to unfold before our eyes, most of which, by the way, will be bizarre events. We will not be able to even understand how these forces, how these events came together. So don't think that you're going to look at everything now and think that everything has to be from a logical perspective. Everything has to be rational. You're going to see a lot of bizarre events and betrayal after betrayal. Right now, we cannot trust our own, right? Because one would have thought that Haiti is a bona fide member of CARICOM, and look at what the CARICOM ladies and gentlemen are doing to her, to Haiti. Now, let's look at, I think I had this here. Did I lose it? Let us look at what the CARICOM members are saying. And I'm seeing here Dr. Gonzalez. Let me share my screen with you. Dr. Gonzalez, that is the Prime Minister of St. Vincent and the Grenadines, a man who pretends or purported that he was anti-imperialism. And he is represented at this meeting, right? See him right here. This is Dr. Gonzalez, right? This is the man who everybody thought was anti-US imperialism. But let us look at what the president here of CARICOM, the sitting president at the moment, has to say. All right, so we have here the president of St. Vincent and the Grenadines, and then we have in the middle here, we have the president of the Prime Minister rather of Guyana, and then we have to your right, we have sitting here, Mia Mottley, the Prime Minister of Barbados. All right, let us look at listen to what this guy has to say.
And the expansion of that role again. And remember, always, this is Haitian-led. Whatever we do must be what the Haitian people want of us. That is the important point. It is not what we want, it is what the Haitian people want of us. But we exercise leadership as a region in being proactive.
In BBC Jamaica. Can you give more clarification on this sort of issue?
So I don't want to go into details, but the security mission has many components. It has the deployment of the MSS. That is one aspect. We have the financing. That's the second aspect. And then we have what we term today bridging security mechanism. That's the third aspect that is under consideration. How do we ensure that there is a bridge between the deployment and what exists today? And that requires continuous assessment and also requires resources and equipment on the ground. I wouldn't want to go further than that because these are matters that are carefully crafted and being discussed. And one of the good things about this process, you have noticed that in the last few weeks, you members of the media had to be patient with us. We had a number of calls and pressure from the media, but it was extremely important that we remain patient and remain deep in our conversations and discussions, whilst not preempting or looking for media moments. That is not what we want. For this to be successful, we cannot be looking for media moments. We have to be very strategic and careful in what we do, and that is what we want to do on the security matter, even more careful on that matter.
Kimon Francis from the Gleaner. Has CARICOM agreed on member states accepting Asian migrants for Haiti in the interim?
That was not for discussion at these meetings. We are focused on the stability of Haiti, stabilizing Haiti, working towards putting Haiti on a path of prosperity, development, on a path of political stability and leading to free and fair election. That is the priority, and the security of the Haitian people and having humanitarian aid in there. That is where our focus is. The destabilization means that we have to do more to stabilize the situation and faster. In the interim, we have to act faster. That is what we're focusing on. The people of Haiti and Haiti, how fast and dynamic we can work in Haiti to bring resolution and solution and to bring comfort to the people of Haiti. That is where our focus and minds are occupied at this moment. Thank you.
Good night. I am Zara Bird, representing Today America's Quarterly. I wanted to ask about the engagement of the gang against the force controlling the House of Haiti at this point. Has this in consultation with the Transitional Council addressed the issue of how to engage or not engage the gangs? That's one. Two, on the issue of security, it was a commitment today from the United States, 300 million, it was from 100 million. I wanted to find out if there were additional commitments. It was heard from Mexico, we heard from France today, a little bit. Just wanted to find out if there were any specific monies committed additional to what the United States committed in terms of the security effort, and also whether any CARICOM countries are committing any funds. Also, three, last question. I wanted to find out if on the issue of security, again, the deployment of troops, we know Kenya, Benin, Jamaica, I think Bahamas as well. Are there any timelines in terms of when we will see troop deployment from any of these either CARICOM nations or African nations? Any timelines that you can give us?
Well, first of all, as I said, the security matter is a very sensitive matter. Security matter involves, spoke about financing, deployment of troops. All of these matters came up in parallel meetings today. I would go as far as saying we are in discussion with many stakeholders, many partners, on what their contribution and role would be, but I will not go further than that at this stage. To go further than that at this stage, we'll be doing an injustice to the conversation that is ongoing. Yes. Yeah. We had an increase in Canada and we also.
I think that we have given a lot of power to our elected officials. We have I guess we have allowed ourselves to be in this position. So when they want to deflect and to evade questions, right? They just simply say that it's for security reasons. We can't tell you X, Y, Z. And we have to be in the dark because they know better than we do, and they're trying to protect us. It's always in the name of protection. And we know that that's not true. We know that it's the opposite of what they say. But this is where we are at this juncture of our history. And I think we are returning to the dark ages. I think that with all of the knowledge that we have had access to, that we have not been able to use that knowledge to a great extent for the uplift of the majority of our people. And because of human selfishness, when we are comfortable within our own, space, we tend not to think about what the injustices that are happening to other people in other parts or outside of our space in other parts of the world. And as a result of that, our politicians are observing, and eventually, because they practice injustice to another set of people, then they will eventually practice injustice upon people who have some, some elements of freedom, some degree of freedom. Now, one of the things I must say before I enter this video, and I want you to understand this very clearly, what is happening in Haiti right now is an example, or is a lesson, I should say, not an example, but a lesson for all of us. Whether you're living in America or Europe or Africa, wherever you live in Asia. Haiti is now the playground in which these powers that be are experimenting how they can impose a totalitarian regime upon all citizens of the world. And if the Haitians lose this battle, it means therefore that it's a loss for all of us, because they are fighting for democracy. They're fighting for true, the Haitians on the ground are fighting for true democracy. They're not fighting for the false democracy that we are living in at the moment. So you've got to study the history, you've got to study the issues and see how much you can write your politicians, your local governments, and explain to them that what they're doing should not be done. And for those of us who are in the Caribbean region, I think that we need to make our voices heard and let our government officials know that we are not in agreement with what they are doing. Incidentally, I think that it seems to me that the DR is now becoming an official member of the core group. I don't know what you think about that. They seem now to be, silent on the matter. They're just saying that I think the Dominican government is saying that, Haiti is out of their hands. Let me see. There is something. There's an article in the Listing Diario that I saw today, and it says that República Dominicana pide que la transición en Haití sea con las voces más significativas y representativas, lo siento, del pueblo. So they're asking that the transition in Haiti be held with the most important voices and representatives of the people. All right, so that means that is good that they're saying that, you know, the voices should be the most significant voices, that those are the voices that should be heard, and not voices that are in any way in opposition to Haiti's development. But it's not the same thing the US is saying too, but doing the complete opposite. So is that necessarily true? But what is certain is that the Dominican Republic is saying that they do not want to participate. I think they were invited to Kingston to participate in the CARICOM session on Monday, and they turned down that invitation. They refused to have attended that session, which means therefore that CARICOM is now left with that problem. And the United States has a way of just casting its burdens and problems onto the other states. Because, you know, when you're talking about monies being sent to Haiti, it's not to develop Haiti, right? It's not going to be going into the hands of the ordinary man and to develop the infrastructure. It is to enrich the globalists and the capitalists, the global capitalists in Haiti. So never be in any way, and you know, United States citizens, you have to understand this is your taxpayers' money. And many people in America are also suffering economically. And your taxpayers' money, all right, is being used to enrich, to further enrich, I should say, the global capitalists. So you've got to think and begin to understand that what is happening in Haiti is going to have direct effects and impact on all of us living in the Western Hemisphere specifically and all around the world. So don't think that what is happening in Haiti is an isolated case. This is a very important matter. Very important. And it perhaps is almost on the same level with the revolution that happened there from 1791 to 1804, because this is going to determine whether we're going to have a free world or we are going to live in a dictatorial, totalitarian society. And which society would you want to live in? Would you prefer to live in a free, democratic society, or do you want to live in a society in which gangs, as we're seeing happening in Haiti, which are controlled by these transnational corporations, inflict serious harms and damage and enslave you and the destiny and lives of your children? This is for us to decide, and we've got to study what is happening in Haiti. Stop talking nonsense and stop believing as if you're safe in your corner, because we are safe for now. But very soon, you and I, the gangs, will come also knocking at our doors and will abuse and will, in some cases, torture us and restrict our freedoms. Thank you so much for joining. I look forward to seeing you in another chat. Please be reminded to like and to share and to subscribe and to leave a comment. But you need to like the video because YouTube is right now censoring videos and censoring speech. So you've got to like the video. I'm sure they don't like what I'm talking about at this juncture because platform represents also the imperialist wing of the military industrial complex. Thank you so much for joining again. Peace. All the best to you. So long.